Hello and welcome to my video over emotional behavioral disorders. Today we will be talking about the definition, prevalence, characteristics, teaching strategies with students with EBD, resources, a video of a real-life diagnosed child, 3 open-ended questions, and 3 multiple-choice questions. So diving into the definition, this is a condition showing one or more of these characteristics, an inability to learn that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors, inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers, inappropriate types of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances, general pervasive mood of unhappiness or depression, or a tendency to develop physical symptoms of fear associated with personal school problems. So this comes from the Ideal website if you would like to know where that's sourced from. The prevalence is 6 to 10% of school-age children are diagnosed with EBD, with the number of boys being diagnosed outnumbering the girls. There is a 5-to-1 ratio for externalizing, which means that they show their emotions on the outside more often. The third thing is characteristics. So some common characteristics that we see is hyperactivity, aggression, or self-injurious behavior, withdrawal, immaturity, learning difficulties, and their IQ is usually below average, which is less than 90. So if you look here on the left, there are some common types of emotional behavioral disorders, and these include ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, and conduct disorder. Okay, moving on to the 5 strategies for instruction. Alright, so for number 1, we have systematic instruction. Being an intentional and goal-setting educator is important, especially in the classroom with students who have EBD. So systematic instruction is teaching based on principles of applied behavior analysis. This practice is effective for teaching academic skills to children with developmental disabilities. Some examples of this are teaching meaningful outcomes, targeting measurable skills, and promoting the transfer of stimulus control, which means teaching the students how to engage in positive behaviors independently. Okay, moving on to number 2, we have implementation fidelity. So how implementation fidelity should be implemented alongside systematic instruction. They work really, really well together. This is the practice of making sure the delivery of your practices stay in line with your original protocol. So this means that you are consistent in your classroom implementations and rules. Studies have shown that following this practice produces more intended outcomes like better academic achievement and better behavior control. Moving on to number 3, we have non-contingent reinforcement. So students with EBD often need extra attention, and they may act out if they feel like they're not getting that attention. So non-contingent reinforcement just gives them periodic, random, or set interval positive reinforcement. So this is not dependent on their behaviors, and this reinforcement allows the student to get that extra reinforcement and attention, which eliminates the need for the problem. So it's basically eliminating the problem of not getting the attention they want before it even occurs. Number 4, we have teaching self-management skills. So self-management is a really big part of teaching students with EBD. One of the main reasons for this is self-control, because often these students have trouble with things like acting out or impulsivity. So being able to control our outbursts allows for a better classroom management and better on tasks, behaviors, and things like this. So supporting these practices while the students are young will allow the students to be more independent throughout their school years and their lives as well. Okay, moving on to number 5, we have stay flexible and adaptable. So students with emotional behavioral disorders often exhibit some unpredictable and hostile behaviors. This causes the teachers to need to be flexible and adaptable because each day can be unpredictable. Some days their behaviors might be quote unquote normal, and sometimes they may be more outbursts and hitting and screaming. So you just have to be prepared for all of the things that can change from day to day. and you need to be quick to respond to be able to accommodate those emotions and behaviors. Okay, so moving on to the websites. So, first we have supporting emotional and behavioral disabilities in the classroom. So, this article has a synopsis of what EBD is, um, including the IDEA definition. So, that is the one set by the law. It then lists and explains ways educators can support these students. It is short and a quick read, so I think it is a great thing just to have and read to see some management strategies, and it's very quick, so it's easy to read. Next, we have 5 tips for handling EBD kids in an inclusive classroom. So it can be challenging and discouraging to feel like you aren't able to help your students with EBD. So this article gives 5 quick tips on how educators can modify their classroom management plans in order to help all of their students. The only thing I would change about this is put for handling kids with EBD, because it's always good to put the person first. So keep this in mind. But other than that, this website shows really great tips. Um, Number 3 is emotional and behavioral disorders in the classroom. So, this is an article written in 2023, so it is really relevant for today. Educationcorner.com is the website it comes from, and this is excellent, has excellent, relevant information for educators. So, it's kind of like it'll have blog posts or people will ask questions and they will answer it, and it's to educators. So it has really good information, but this specific article describes the different types of disorders associated with each of the umbrella term of EPD. This is helpful because it breaks it down from that umbrella term into more precise categories, and then it goes on to talk about strategies for teaching these children effectively. So, number 4, we have common behavioral disorders in children. So, this article focuses on the behavioral aspect of disorders. It defines what a behavioral disorder is as a whole, what some more specific disorders are, and then it also talks about things like risk factors and how you can get to a diagnosis. So, I think the diagnosis part is really cool because people can learn how these children will get diagnosed. So yeah, it just has really great information about more specific things. Number 5 is addressing early childhood emotional and behavioral problems. So this is from the article of American Academy of Pediatrics, so it is peer reviewed. It's an excellent resource that is backed up by evidence. It gives information and data on preventions and treatment. So this is excellent to see because of the data and the prevention strategies that it shows, and these are all backed up by evidence, so there's a more likelihood that they will be effective. Now, the last one is emotional behavioral fact sheet. So, this is a great resource that defines this disorder. It also gives information about the types, the probable causes, the characteristics, and some teaching tips. So, this source allows educators to learn more about emotional behavioral disorder just as a whole. So next is the video, and I can't get it to work due to copyright issues, but I will turn that in later. So now we have the questions. Number 1 is what percent of school-aged children are diagnosed with emotional behavioral disorders? This should be 6 to 10%. Number 2, what are 3 common characteristics of EBD? This should be any of the characteristics that I described in the beginning. Number 3, according to the video, a serious mental illness is any mental illness that affects blank. For people who have serious mental illness and who are not treated, there's a tendency towards blank, especially towards the people that are closest and most of all blank. So this should be affect somebody you love, tendency towards violence, and especially towards the people that are closest and most of all themselves. Moving on to multiple choice, we have what is the ratio of boys to girls for externalizing behavior? Number 2, we have which of the following is not a characteristic of EBD? And number 3, we have which of the following is a common EBD disorder? The answers should be B, D, and B. Thank you so much for watching.